10, 20 years ago, historically, people of color have been represented in a really stereotyped, one-dimensional way. I think, on The Simpsons, you had the Indian or Middle Eastern character who was the Quickie Mart guy, or you would have the sassy black woman, and these stereotypes just became ingrained in people's minds. And that creates fiction is reality, right? Just reflect it differently. And so I think it creates for an unhealthy dialogue and human experience. Now we're able to be multidimensional. We're taking control of our stories and we're saying, I'm not that stereotype, I'm actually X, Y, and Z. I don't act like that, I don't look like that. Or maybe I do sometimes, but there are these other parts of me. And I think that's why representation is important, because when you have a book that's written by the person of that background, it makes for a more complex, interesting story. So I think one of the really great things about YA right now is that we're getting more and more diverse books. We're getting diverse boys and girls on book covers, which means that, actual real world diverse boys and girls get to see themselves reflected in the books that they read. And I love that. And I love that because not only were people of color not really featured heavily in books, let alone, the protagonist, the hero of their own story 10, 20 years ago when I was growing up. But I think also that they were limited. When their characters were featured, they were limited to a certain stereotype, right? And now we're seeing, Black and Middle Eastern and Asian boys and girls. We're seeing gay and trans and bisexual and all these diverse people. They get multi-layered stories. We finally get to actually be the person that we are in all of our quirks and idiosyncrasies and nuances. And I think that's beautiful because at the end of the day, I see sort of two types of diverse stories. And there's often, a lot of overlap here, but they usually fall in one bucket or the other. And it's diverse stories that really highlight how being a person of color or being different has its unique challenges, and the problems that you face, the bullying that you might face, the discrimination, things like that. And the second type, it's a diverse story that shows that people who look different, who love differently, are really just like you and me in so many other senses. We all deal with failure. We have these common human experiences. We love, we have our families, we have our friends, we eat, we drink, we are married. I think both stories are really important. And of course, most of the diverse books you read probably touch on both sides, right? They show how diverse people are unique and face issues, but at the same time are just like you and me and every other human. Now that we're allowing for more diverse stories, we shouldn't expect these authors of color to represent the entire experience of their diversity. A Black female author might have one thing to say about that experience, but not the same thing as a different Black female author. I'm an Iranian Muslim author, but I might have something very different to say than a different Iranian Muslim person. And I think that's something we're getting better about too. That, because we're allowing for, we know that we should be allowing for more diverse stories, that you're allowed to write about your unique experience without the burden of feeling like you have to cover everything. And I'm so excited to get that balance in more books. And I think it's going to make for a better world.